Well, in my life, I've came across a lot of people that have done a lot of travel because I myself also travel. But Robin Canfield, you are a unique one. You have done a lot of travel. Can you possibly tell me how many countries you've actually been to?
I believe it is 30. It's not something that I check that often or keep in mind, but actually one of the students here in Vietnam asked me that the other day. And adding in Jamaica, that was my newest visit this year, I believe it put it to 30.
Wow. Now, where we're recording at the moment, Ho Chi Minh City, Saigon, Vietnam, where does this rank amongst the countries that you've been to?
That's very hard. That's not. I will give people recommendations on the kind of places that are fitting for them, but not generally like this is the one place you need that everyone needs to go. I've been to big cities, small towns, remote places. This is what is it technically, a super city now, I think. So everywhere's different. I mean, if I had anything that I had to go by on like, would I stay long term or that kind of thing, the walking around in a mask constantly because the air quality is pretty low is a hindrance. It's frustration. I like being able to breathe freely, but it is also like a non-stop city with so much going on. So it's really enjoyable. But on a scale, I don't usually put ones on scales like that. It really depends who I'm talking to for like, oh, you should go here or you should visit this kind of place.
Yeah, no, it's a good answer. And I mean, it's definitely one of those really hustle bustle cities. I was even saying it on one of my daily vlogs the other day that if you sort of go against the flow of the city, including trying to stagger your walking while you're trying to cross the road, you will get caught out. It's certainly one of those cities that you do have to kind of flow with the rhythm and the pace of it and embrace it. And I do feel like you, myself, and the participants of this program have been able to do that pretty well. How has this experience been so far for you? We're currently, as recording, we're about 3 weeks into the documentary outreach program here in Vietnam. How has this experience been for you specifically on this trip? And for the audience out there listening, what is a documentary outreach program?
Well, I'll start with the documentary outreach is a 4-week workshop, basically. I usually start by describing it to people as it's to teach people better storytelling. But we use making a documentary as the vehicle for storytelling. Breaking it down kind of oversimply is to say the first week is research and relationship building. We do plenty of lessons and get some camera and workshop hands-on time in that too. Second week is the planning week with some more workshops with the camera, do a micro doc in there, get people used to working together on set. Third week is principal photography. It's a blank canvas of a schedule because it's the crews that will decide who they're filming, what they're filming, when, where, and all of that. But they record everything they need for their films in that week and start editing already. The fourth week is editing week, though. That's what we have to look forward to next week. It's going to be some long hours, some very frustrated peoples as they try to figure out how to better formulate what they're trying to say in their film so they can put it down on a timeline for an audience to see in the end. And for how it's been going here, there's always an interesting mix of all kinds of problems arise, sometimes to different degrees than I've seen before, but it's often still the same kind of issues. So I get a lot of people worried, or you think we're really going to be able to get it done, and I can just pretty calmly say yes. Yeah, we'll get through this. We've seen it before. And me being calm, staying calm often is really helps them be more confident too. As far as like unique things, this trip strangely had I don't know if it'd be a slower start to the research process or just to say like across the board, there was more hesitance to get started or let us come in and start meeting people and get to know people. That's really the first thing we do. We're asking questions, but basic questions, easy questions. It's really first step, get to know people, and then they'll open up more. And getting the meetings with people to get to know them was harder, so it put everyone a bit further behind. That kind of thing happens often to one crew. There's 3 crews here. But this time, yeah, all 3 crews had that same thing. So they've all been operating a bit kind of behind schedule. It took longer to get that ball rolling than it should have or than it normally does. But they've all come back pretty strong from that. I'd say we're a little bit behind, not even a full day's work behind. And that is also because one crew had a really big day on Friday, which is usually kind of tail end of that filming week. And then yesterday, Saturday, one crew had a major day because that was a set event that they couldn't do any other time. So they all have just more sorting and setting things into motion for their different scenes and things to get cut together.
Yeah, I still remember, the last documentary outreach we did together, and there was a crew that was, I think, filming on the Saturday of that production week, and it was in a place, Zamora, so about nearly 4 hours away, and so trying to get that pretty much their entire shot list done in that one day was certainly pretty extreme. But yeah, you do get those circumstances within this trip where you do get
it happens. And luckily, when I have to talk with groups about that and they're worried about that timeline, I mean, I'll be honest with them. It's going to be more work. It's going to be stressful. But also some of the best films have come out of those kinds of situations. So and I can show them like awards that those films have won. So it helps them at least with knowing like, okay, it can be done. And not only that, like it might turn out really, really good for all that work.
Very true. Now, the subjects of these films, the terms local changemaker is one that Actuality Abroad and yourself use quite a bit, and maybe not everyone might be aware of that term. What is a local changemaker?
We actually, in our briefings, is what we call the lessons that we do, mostly week 1 but into week 2, we used to start with what is a changemaker. Not enough people really knew the idea, the concept, but within a few years of starting Actuality Abroad, we took that one away. Everyone, at least people coming into the programs, had a pretty good idea of what we're talking about, the kind of people. But I mean, it's really any person, any organization working towards positive change that's social, environmental, and we say good for their community, but that could be good for their neighborhood, could be one small neighborhood in Bangkok. It could be the whole city of Bangkok. It could go beyond that to be a region. I jumped back to Bangkok because that was we had one that really was one small school serving one little area, but we also had a group doing food for neighborhoods scattered across like the whole metropolitan area. So really groups, it changes who they're working with. That also changes what audiences we're looking to also, but yeah, it could be a person, could be an organization. If they're doing something good for a positive impact on the community, especially if it's inspiring, that we can come in and be able to tell their story and hopefully, 1, spread their word, get them more attention, but 2, possibly inspire others to try similar paths in their community as well. That's what we really hope for.
I love that. And, obviously the groups that we're working with here in Vietnam are, doing some amazing community work. And one is literally called Social Changemakers. So it's literally what they are is very clear in the name. Do you find that all the communities that you're going to, particularly in, countries that might be a little bit more on the impoverished side, have these local changemakers? Do you find that there is quite a strong network of these people doing good work around the world?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, every country, I think, really has some. Places we might call impoverished, that kind of thing, like there tends to be more, but also I don't have 100% rule about, they have to be locals leading these organizations, but places where there tends to be more foreigners also coming in, trying ideas. And I've met some really well-respected, really loved people in different communities that came from other parts of the world, and worked with some of those on different projects. But I will often look for, like, can I find locals that started initiatives and projects? They're just often better tapped into what the community needs and how to address that.
Yeah, that's having that kind of level of insight into sort of what the community needs are, and potentially how they're doing that solution-based work is really, really interesting. Is there a level of, I guess, trying to understand what the solution might be, in those early initial weeks when you speak to the change makers, and sort of encouraging the participants of the program to go, okay, like, this is the sort of need that you're looking for. These are the types of messages you want to get out to the audience when you do release your final film. Is there a lot of sort of prep work and thinking that goes behind that, or do some of the change makers honestly go, it's up to you guys to sort of decide what we need as far as the message?
I talk with all of the change makers to get a better understanding of who do they think needs to know more about them. Sometimes that is people on the other side of the city they're working in. Sometimes it is more looking for volunteers from other parts of the country, other parts of the world. It can change dramatically. And again, when we have multiple crews in one city, we could have one crew that really is working on, just farmers from this side of town, and one that is like, we need more Westerner volunteers that can work in this organization that brings in the funding for our other part of our nonprofit. So I want to know, we want the film to benefit the organization. So we look for who they want to talk to, what do they think that those audiences need to know about them. And, we ask, like, what are you hoping that they will do after they watch the film? We can't guarantee what that's going to be. And I also don't guarantee 100% that, this film is going to work towards exactly what they say. One, it doesn't always work in, a storytelling or documentary fashion. Like, it's not always a plausible approach for the film and the story. But also the crews come in and do the research and work really hard to come up with a great story to tell in the documentary. And so I need to hold space for them to have a say in how this film's coming together also.
Yeah, it's very important to sort of make sure everyone's kind of represented, in those discussions, and ensuring that, there is that understanding with the change makers that their story is obviously told in the most authentic and ethical, and sort of the way that they can kind of envisage themselves on screen.
I try to set the bar with all of the crews as, here's the person you decide on for your protagonist. You're telling their story. Do it so well that they want to go out and tell people to watch that film. If they succeed in that, it's going to be a good story. It's going to do right by the person. That person's still going to feel like it's their story, which is important because it is. But the crew is making creative choices on how to put this together. What do they film? What do they pace it as? Where do they place things? Like, they still put in an incredible amount of work to make that film.
Oh, most definitely. And obviously, like, our own connection, we've known each other for, over 10 years now. And as a university student, first year uni, I remember hearing about Actuality Abroad through could have been first or second day of my media degree at university in Australia. And the uniqueness of this program really stood out to me. As someone who's worked in the non-for-profit disability sector for all my life up until that point, I was like, wow, this is an opportunity to do something great, and inspire. But then there's also that component of storytelling and learning while you're on the ground, working with people from all around the world, and actually being able to deliver something tangible in the form of a 10-minute or thereabouts documentary. It was very unique to me, and even though I was only 19 at the time and had only up until that point done one documentary coming out of high school, being on that experience really changed my life, and it really did allow me to not only create something very empowering, but also work with a lot of experienced people that had been 3-4 years plus in the filmmaking industry. So it is a really unique program. I speak to that because I've, being a participant, now obviously being a program supervisor with you, just seeing what it's like for a participant is very empowering. And so I guess when it comes to sort of your participants, is there a level of you have to be, have any kind of level of storytelling experience or even any kind of technical experience when it comes to being on the trip, or do you kind of open it up and throughout your sort of interviews early doors, you're sort of, are there certain traits that you're looking for those people looking to sign up?
I mean, everyone is a storyteller, so everyone has experience with that. That's an easy base level of anyone that's concerned about, could I do this? And like you already do. Everyone would benefit from more practice and skills with storytelling, but everyone is a storyteller. So then for the cruise, if I look at it percentages, it's usually about 2/3 enrolled uni students, and then a third that is grad students. Sometimes we have a mix of people in the industry who are looking to shift into other fields, other positions. And that makes up most of the other third, but there's always a little chunk of I just say random. We've had exercise science professor. We've had people who just thought, well, that looks fascinating, maybe I'll give it a try. Had a biologist who wanted to bring more film into her work, so she wanted to come and have that experience. I love the random, it wouldn't work, I don't think, as too big of a percentage, but to have 3 experienced, at least in uni, film students at a table with someone who does not have that training, and they're throwing out ideas of what if we do this, what if we do that, and the random person is the one who will come up with 9 ideas that everyone's like, we can't do that. But then that 10th idea, they're like, what about this? And there's no way we could do that. Like, that's where those ideas are. Like, some of the biggest, coolest ideas come from that sometimes. So I like having the random, but as far as qualifications, requirements, I mean, for insurance, everyone has to be 18 or older. I don't mind that rule so much for the crowds that we get that way. And then, honestly, the only technical requirement is for people who want to run the camera. They need to already have camera experience. We can teach a lot out here, but getting people good at filming with the camera is more time than what we have for. It becomes, we're in a different country, people who have never worked together before, schedules can get tight, everything starts late except football games. There's so many stresses that will add up. Not being able to operate the camera becomes obvious very quickly and becomes a big stressor. It's just not something we want to get into. So I make sure anyone that wants to be a cinematographer has enough experience to be operating that camera. And beyond that, I've had people come in with almost no editing experience, but we're not doing big effects or things. It's documentary. And if I'm teaching them how to do cutting to scenes that are then their own little, we can move those around as their own pieces, and I can really help people get through. We have the micro docs so people can get a little practice before they get to their main film too. So we can get people taught up on that. And directors, it's the getting them in proper communication mode with their producer, with their cinematographer, with their editor. That is the big important part, because they all have ideas, they just don't all communicate them in the same way, and need everyone on the same wavelength to understand each other. Producers, everyone can really, it's not the same as being back home, for wherever home is for people. We don't have all of the same tasks that producers would have, but keeping people organized, schedules together, forms together, all these, it's a manageable task for people who haven't done it too much before. And honestly, more than film students, the best producers I've ever had on trips are actually, we build programs for universities too. And when they go outside of just the film department and bring people in, and I'm like, please bring me a business student, please bring me a business student. And they will show up and be like, oh, did you want the weekly schedule in 3 colors or 5 colors to go into greater detail? And everything is perfectly organized. Every day has the best now, like, every day the call sheet is just perfect and like better than I could have hoped for from anyone else.
Wow.
And I'm like, yeah, business students are. So then I'm like, then I know like it could really, like, outsiders coming in can really do well on their contributions. They can pick up a lot, learn a lot, integrate really well. So yeah, really open to anyone, and as long as they're legally allowed into the countries we're going to. That is sometimes an issue.
Wow.
We've managed to get around that a few times too, always legally.
Of course.
Never, like, there's no sneaking somebody in. But for the work we're doing, most people appreciate the kinds of organizations we want to work with and help. So gone to consulate, had people go to the right consulate, get the right letter, because that consul was like, oh, that is a, yeah, please go do that in my country, and writes them a letter to get into immigration, and then off we go.
Wow. No, definitely important to do it in the most most legal way possible, and just making sure that you're abiding by all the rules in country, which of course would be a huge educational pursuit for you, just given how many countries you are doing the outreach in. I'm assuming, just from my own interest, like the countries that you're going to and selecting, have you been to those countries before personally, or some of them you just kind of do some base research and then go? And
most of them I've been to, but not all of them. And then it's a case of, usually I know some people that have been to other countries that I'm considering, and I'll find more people to talk to. We, of course, are looking for the changemakers before we're ever traveling. And so talking to them, and even if they are locally based or locally founded changemakers, there's often, a lot of places we go are popular tourist destinations also on some level, and that means that there are foreigners there volunteering, and we can ask them about their experience too. That's proven very helpful for how do you get around, what's day-to-day like, what do you do for fun, because 4 weeks here, we're not just working. I want to have things to suggest for people to go and do, but also we've had Bolivia was one where the Bolivian embassy was very confusing on the things they would communicate to U.S. residents as what's required to enter the country. And even the airline that I was talking to for some of our people were like, oh, I don't know when they check this. Like, we've never been told about this requirement. And I'm like, the embassy said we had to present these things. And we talked to a volunteer with one of the organizations we were going to film with, and he's like, I just flew down from Chicago like 3 days ago. They don't require any of that. They'll tell you they do on the phone because they like to mess with people from the United States. It's not really just to be mean. It's that for all of the requirements that the United States puts on Bolivians to come and visit the United States, they feel like they should do something in kind. So they just tell us some of that. I'm like, well, that's kind of fair. It's unhelpful to me and my students in this case, but I understand where they're coming from, because the walls that put up from the U.S. for even people just to come visit, pretty big, and especially for some different countries. So it's like, all right,
Sure.
That's fair enough.
That's fair enough. You talk about, obviously 1 month is a long time to be, away from whatever home you have. And yeah, you are right about, like, certainly the team camaraderie. I'm sure some people love, doing some solo travel in between those weekends during, the month away. But I certainly remember from my experiences in Guatemala first time round, we were climbing volcanoes and going to Lake Atitlan, which is very beautiful. And, that was a very kind of, out there intrepid experience. I know there's been participants who've been paragliding and some doing white water rafting and so forth. I'm sure you see a lot of examples of that, but it is a good way to kind of, I guess you're not just there for work. You do have some downtime to really explore the flavors of the country, and I'm sure you encourage that.
Yeah, I mean, I very much don't want people to go home from wherever country they're with us at, and people say, oh, what'd you do while you were there? And just, well, I was mostly working on the film. And I mean, percentage-wise, true, they were mostly working on the film, but I want them to have unique local experiences. And also then I just tell them do whatever they need to recharge.
Sure.
So get out and do stuff, but we'll have crews, just like I said, a crew that had a film day yesterday, Saturday on a weekend. I try to make sure people at least get some days off, because some crews, they get so excited so into the project, they want to go 12, 14 days straight. And like, you don't realize it probably that you were getting burnt out, and your whole project will be better if you need to take a day off. Sometimes that's a hammock, sometimes it's a cooking class, climb a volcano, paragliding I don't see quite as often, but it's and so, I mean, in part for that, every documentary outreach, we have everyone land on the Saturday. We don't start work till Sunday till Monday, because that Sunday we'll be going out and doing some sort of fun excursion for getting to know the area, looking for something unique. Early on, I would look for what was most exciting, and I'm a fan of zip lining. I'm a fan of belaying down waterfalls things, but those aren't really that unique to the areas that they're in, which it took a while to really catch on to, like, we can find some better things for that. So more looking for local experiences that, in Mexico last summer started off at a hot spring. That's not entirely unique, but some of the people had never been to one like that. Wow. So it was a cool starter for plenty of people. And then we went to the two towns that are really like the center of the Mexican Revolution, where the march that's kicked it all off started and ended, and got to go into a cathedral there that had very specific local art that had been painted by indigenous people for the Catholic Church kind of thing. And so it gave them its own unique flavor. And here in Saigon, I found a very local, independently started travel company that gives local tours. Things like a no tourist food tour, where you're not supposed to bump into any other travelers because they take you so deep and unique. And we did a city tour with them. We saw other tourists, sure, but we were on bikes with locals, being driven around, getting to explore back alleys, cool destination spots in town, some that had tourists and some that were their own, like, you should know about this part of the city so that you learn these things. And started a great relationship with them, that to when one of our other changemakers unfortunately didn't work out. It happens. In this case, we had a great group that was going to they do river cleanup projects, and the rivers here can be pretty bad state. And so everyone was excited for that. It was a great environmental looking project. And then because the Tet Lunar New Year is coming, they moved all of their cleanup to after that, which is beyond the end of our project here. So with no river cleanup to film, we decided to move to a different project, and actually went through 2 or 3 other river cleanup organizations and trash pickup organizations that all had kind of the same issue of either too busy for the new year or moved everything for the new year. And so came back to the tour group that really, really wants to focus on, we want people to have the authentic Saigon experience when they come, not just hear about the history, but this is a mega city doing all of its own interesting things. You should learn about how it is here and now.
Wow. And so to be able to then, have had that relationship with just that tour, because you were interested, you wanted to do something authentic, and then all of a sudden it actually is becoming and will become the documentary for one of the groups is awesome. That you're able to find that.
I'm always curious. Yeah. So Kurt was my driver, local guy, and I asked him plenty of questions just on the tour. Hadn't come to the idea of filming with them yet, but the more I learned, the more interesting it sounded. And then I still had to have a long conversation with Happy, the founder, and even he was skeptical. Why us? Why this? Why that? Why do you think we're a good one? And when I circled it back down to the reason I chose you in the first place is because I wanted the most authentic type of the authentic experience we could get. And he's like, well, that's exactly what we want to give people. And I'm like, that's why we want to film with you. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, all right. That clicked then, and he was great. You're right, we can do this. This sounds like a project let's do it.
Obviously, coming onto the program when I was 19, we spoke about as as you do, making sure you interview the participants first before you do select them to come onto the program, and making sure that they align with all the values of Actuality, and obviously do, have those storytelling, that storytelling interest, and are teachable and are curious, right? And so what interests me obviously is the structure of the program. And to me, it is a unique structure, 1 month to make a 10-minute documentary and a micro doc in there, with all of the teaching, all of the integration, all the getting to know each other, and then obviously the delivery of a 10-minute documentary that then gets screened to the locals and the participants, and obviously the people that are involved in these documentaries. Tell me a bit more about how you, I guess, arrived on this kind of, unique structure, particularly around what we'll be doing this week with the paper edits, and then obviously the release of the film, which is definitely one of the key highlights for a lot of the participants you talk to.
It's our own custom curriculum, and from experience, from journalism studies for me, from film studies for Aubrey, the other co-founder, and it's gone through a lot of development over the years. Even now, every lesson I teach, I still end with, give me notes on, is there anything you didn't understand? Is there things that you were really into? How can we shift this and make it better to get it across with people? It's come to the point to, I even was writing a handbook out for everyone with 2 years ago, I'd say now. And a professor I take abroad said, hey, there's a publisher looking for proposals for exactly this kind of thing. You should talk to them. That leads to a very interesting new experience for me in all of publishing and things, to about a month ago, Purpose-Driven Documentaries being the textbook for this exact process that came out. But for that process, again, research and relationship building is a big part of that in the first week, but it didn't used to be. That's something we really had to learn more about through the experience with people. So we started with a, hero's journey structure is a way that people really take to stories. We can work that into a documentary approach, but in a 10-minute documentary, 12 stages is too much. So we had to start making our own condensed version of that, and then working more on the impact side, what is the organization looking for? How can it help benefit them, and factoring these things in. And just kept developing that into I broke it down already for the 4 weeks. So going from the research into the writing out, the story planning, and so with every crew now, they've done all of 95% plus of their filming. There's going to be some things that they're missing. We'll get to that tomorrow when we get to see their visual assemblies. And from that point, the editors it's basically a roadmap. Every crew in that second week finishes the week with a story outline it's a treatment on paper that is so detailed you can just imagine what's going to be on screen from reading it and what you're going to hear from reading it. So that way a cinematographer can start writing out their shot list for filming. The producer can start gauging how much time do we need in all of these different places. The director will know, okay, we got to ask these questions again and film that for the interview. Nothing should be new questions at that point. They've done pre-interviews with everyone. They should know this information. But that is the roadmap, and I tell them it needs to be so detailed that if the editor weren't here, we could hand all this footage off and the outline and give it to an editor who could cut that together.
Wow.
I also tell them it's never going to actually stay in that exact form. Things will go wrong as we film. There will be, things get missed as we film. Sometimes we film exactly what we intended and it just doesn't work out. I always go back to a group at Lake Atitlan in Guatemala that was a fishermen's cooperative we were filming with. The population of fish in the lake has gone so far down they can't sustain that as an industry anymore. Most of the men in that cooperative were working at a coffee plantation for their day job, and the crew had thought, well, we'll film them at the plantation. They'll look so sad that they're at this coffee plantation instead of out on the water in their boats like they should be. It'll really get across to the audience how sad it is that the fish population's not there and they're doing this other work. And then the guys thought it was so hilarious that the film crew wanted to follow them around on the coffee plantation. They were laughing, they were smiling, they were having a great time. It looked wonderful, and it didn't work at all for what they wanted. So there's a few seconds of them on the plantation. I think it's mostly from behind, so you can't see their faces, to show this is the work that they're doing. And then they went back to their protagonist and actually had a scene of him explaining to his son how his son's not going to be able to be like a fisherman like he has been because there's not going to be enough fish. So gave the same emotional message, and they just, because we had such an outlined plan of this is how the story's going to go, when they saw that the coffee plantation didn't work, they knew we need something else. And for a 4-week schedule, like, we have to be that prepared, have everything that planned out so we can move that quickly. In this editing week, it will be visual assembly, rough cuts, fine cut, all of that. But there'll be some pickups. Every crew will have probably a little bit of pickups. No one's coming back after this week. No one's flying back to Vietnam to get more footage later. So we have to get it done now. And for that, like I was saying with the outline, it's not just things won't work out that will change it around. We will have probably not this wall. Glass surfaces tend to be easier. So windows and mirrors and things, probably not the TV. We need that for watching the cuts.
We do.
We will have note cards up that cover every scene and major beat of the film. So we color code it in different ways. I'll work with crews on that, whether they just want audio one color, visual the other. But every sequence of the 5 sequences we break it down to will have its own column or row. And then we put every scene and beat in there, every soundbite in there, and we can take in everything at one glance. You know, on a timeline, being able to watch it back and forth is great, but to be able to just see it and say, you know, this scene might really be more powerful over here, and this one really should come immediately after this over here for the best dramatic effect. Like, we're not fabricating anything, we're just moving pieces of this story around. We never try and tell people this is the order that it happened in, and if it's not, that kind of thing. But still, like, when some of those details come up, we are deciding where that will go. And this paper cut just, it really makes, it's really, really hard for crews to get started. For the first 20, 30 minutes, it's often a struggle just to get 1 or 2 cards written, because, you know, I start with, give me a title for this sequence that conveys to me exactly what you're getting across with this. So that way I can reference every card, does it add to this goal? And that is a really big challenge that, I mean, it's in the textbook. I hope people really get it from that, but it's really hard even sitting with people sometimes to get that, like, get them to understand what this is doing and how to do it. So that's why I imagine I might get some queries from people of like, but how do you really get people started on that? So once they get the ball rolling on that, though, then I can let them go and they will just fill it out. The rest of it, it starts based off that outline. But then, like, okay, but did we actually get this filmed? We watched all of the dailies. We've now seen a visual assembly. Do we have this footage? And if not, we take that down and we got to figure out what else goes in there. Maybe, oh, we also filmed this one awesome scene that we didn't plan on, and we'll stick that note card off to the side in case we find a spot where it will work too. We won't just force it in, but it might be a handy asset. So there will be 3 different, in this apartment, big chunks of note cards around so that we can see and work with the stories in those films.
And it is interesting because I think that is probably a big part of your thinking as you're booking things for one of these programs, to ensure that you do have a space that, you know, the 3 or 4 crews can actually put these notes up. And it is honestly, for those who haven't seen it, it is a beautiful array of colours, and it's important that it is visual because, as you said, being on your laptop, you've got all of this footage in timelines, often in different little folders. It's very hard to see how the film is actually spaced out. And to actually have that structure is just so much easier.
So I am a photographer all my life. I love photography. I take thousands of photos on these trips, for especially behind the scenes photos for the crews too. But when it came to speaking with the agent from Routledge for the textbook, I was like, also I have, years of all of these photos that I can use to help with the different parts of the chapters and to convey to people what I'm trying to teach. It's like, great, we could probably do 40 some different pictures. Yeah, that's an easy number. If you got all of them already in the rights, I'm like, yeah, it's like, cool, yeah, we'll get to that. And then the contract comes in, and I think it was like 10 or 12 photos. So I had to be much more selective. In the end, I didn't even max that number out because I just went for what is actually totally essential. And the paper cut got 3 or 4 photos because it's just really hard to grasp without seeing it and having it in front of you. And I was like, this is one of the most very important parts. Like, we have to give people visual reference to what this looks like, how to put this together. It's conceptualizing it just from being told about it. Sorry, it's pretty hard.
Do you find that like that particular structure is from say some of the alumni of the program, that they continue to use that structure well beyond the program as well? I mean, it is such a helpful way of seeing a film being, assembled.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've had alumni who came back and said, oh yeah, we were working on this. I've had a few photos sent to me of just here's a wall covered with it. But more than that, it's nice to hear other people, new people who get a glimpse of it and say, oh yeah, that, like, whether it's someone that traveled with us saying, oh, I introduced it to this other crew and these people like were great about it once they figured it out too. Or even Aubrey once was on a panel at, I want to say it was the UFVA, University Film Video Association. They had a panel on editing, and it had one person presenting on like tracking eye movements to decide how to do cuts and different things in a film, and another person that was like a highly technical, we're doing all of this, and then she presented on the paper cut and had more people coming up at the end saying like, I could totally use that with my students. That's amazing. We love this idea. Because the technical one was just harder to jump into. Sure. Do you really think the students are going to get that right away? Or, someday they'll use these kinds of things. But the paper cut was just an immediately, like, we can put that to use idea.
And it's wonderful that you've actually found a way through all of the outreach programs that you've done to be able to bring this knowledge together, bring this brilliant structure together that clearly works, and be able to put it into a textbook. Have you actually had some experience where you've been able to teach the textbook on the ground with university students?
Not yet. It came out in December, so during a break anyhow, but also a month and a half ago. So, and I've been in Saigon since the start of January. So no, I haven't gotten to go into any work with any university students with it yet. I do have one professor who already sent me his curriculum, so I could see how he adapted it to work with his university schedule in the class. I need to spend some time going over that because I'm also talking with him about what kinds of, I have worksheets and things that we'll use here on the outreach that aren't necessarily in the textbook. So, what kinds of things could we create as online assets for people with the textbook to be able to bring into their classroom and use there too. So I'll see and hear some more of that. I have had different faculty. I've been trying to get to different conferences and things. So I've had other faculty telling me, I ordered the book. We're gonna use it in. A lot of them are the spring classes. So coming up, I should hear more about it.
It's exciting, and I mean, speaking as an alumni of a media film program, I mean that is something that as a student you would absolutely love to see as an option, because a lot of universities do have certain levels of analysis when it comes to documentary, actually watching documentary films and maybe even making one as an end of semester project, but certainly being integrated into a curriculum where you can actually go on the ground somewhere and make these films would be very exciting to see at more unis.
I hope it brings some more attention. I would love Actuality Abroad to grow, have more programs, go more places. I want more positive storytelling in general. With the textbook, though, as far as when it went from handbook to becoming a textbook, I had high hopes of make this small enough people can carry it with them out in the field, too, if they need. And I admit it probably got a little bit bigger than that. Some of it not even my own design. I was... the first chapter was the last chapter to be written because the publisher asked for me to add more context to just why documentary, not how documentary. So there's an extra chapter that, you know, it's not going to help people out in the field, but I think it does give good context. It helps explain what people can do with documentary, which helps, I hope, will help inspire them to make some more documentaries. That said, though, even for being maybe too big to put in your pocket to carry around, the average, I'd say average documentary textbook comes in about that thickness.
Okay, yes.
And mine's
Ooh,
this big. I
nice.
would nicely hold up, but one of the students here in Saigon borrowed the textbook, which I was happy to let him do.
Yeah.
He'd actually ordered it, but he asked me, like, how long does shipping take? And I said, I've never published a book before, and it just came out, so I'm sorry. I don't know how long that shipping takes. So I let him borrow it here, otherwise I'd hold that up. But both smaller, so I think easier to work with. It's 12 chapters, which fits exactly to university average week's schedule. And I think very importantly, too, that it aims for making short documentary films, whereas most textbooks, they'll address it, but the end goal is feature documentary films. And especially for people getting started, you don't jump to a full feature-length documentary film. You start smaller, you work up to that.
It's exactly the same with narrative, you know, like around, you know, feature-length films, you know, you do typically, well, particularly universities in the US that I've spoken to, do encourage students to at least start on a short film that is around that 10-minute length as well. And I imagine we touched on it a little bit before as well around the actual distribution and the screenings of these films. Certainly one of the fondest memories for me in Guatemala. I'm sitting there as, you know, all dressed up in a suit. You know, a lot of people I'm sure here in Vietnam will get tailor-made suits for the event. But it's a very special way to not only celebrate the filmmaking process for all the participants to really, I guess, just be in a social setting together and celebrate each other's films and get to see them for the first time, jumping from all the different edits and iterations that you've seen. But then actually to have the changemakers themselves there with their families, with their friends, with the entire community. I still remember in Guatemala we had these women with these really traditional, you know, Mayan dresses on that are there watching the film, and, you know, translators on stage actually like translating a lot of the message. You had a really good go at Spanish when we were in Mexico. I thought he did a very good job. I thought you were pretty good. But like even that screening, gosh, like we actually had to, you know, have people like sitting on the stairs, like it was that full.
Standing in the aisles in that theater, so it was 100-person by seat, but I'd say we were probably at 120 because it was crowded in there. That was a beautiful venue. Every place changes for what kind of venue, but yeah, it's one of my most favorite experiences for everyone that's a participant on the program. It's very special to get to see an audience watch your film. This audience is a little bit different for people that were involved in the film, but I really don't want to be just doing extractive storytelling. I don't want to just come and film and leave and hopefully someday the organization gets to see the film. When we build programs with universities, the editing week is usually one of the first things to go if we have to shorten it up to save on cost or just save on time. But I make sure that the conversation keeps going, that the groups will get to see the films, eventually will be given copies of the films so that they can also show it to people too. But yeah, on every documentary outreach, we end with a screening event, and people dress up. It's a great time to celebrate the whole program. It's a great way to say goodbye to all of the people that we befriended and worked with. And yeah, we get to make sure that locals get to see that film too. After that, I keep going. I try to get it into festivals. I don't honestly think that most festivals are going to have audiences that will do a lot for the organization. But I do try to find any festival that's around where the organizations are based, because then we have one of our best shots at getting to people who might do something for the organization. There's there's some festivals that we regularly submit to every year that are very social impact oriented, and so I try to get into them. One, those audiences maybe someone that'll be inspired or do something. Also, some like Social Impact Media Awards is one that we just had a film from the Mexico program get accepted to. And they also have a classroom program so that they send those films and they make them available to people all around the world, so we can just get it to more schools, classes, other groups, and they'll get to watch the films too. So more than happy to just go that route, get more audiences as well. And then sometimes public television stations, university groups. I'm open to all kinds of different other places, other avenues for distribution. It gets tougher and tougher for what outlets there are, especially as we put the films out for free. Once they're 100% done, YouTube and Vimeo, they're just there, ready to watch, ready to download, because we want the organizations to be able to take them and use them as well. So I've had conversations with people. It's been a while because they wanted to like press it onto DVD or Blu-ray or something and sell it. And I was like, well, and they said, but you'll have to not put it up on the internet for free. And I was like, well, we're not going to stop doing that. We want the organizations to have it. And I'd get laughed out of the conversation, because how are you supposed to make money distributing these if you're already putting them out for free? So it is what it is on that. But we do, students will often do screening events on campus. We reach out and try and get it to reach all of the university newspapers and things to get some press on it, and that often gets them more screenings too. As many eyes as we can get on these films. Some of them, being personally involved, I think crosses the rules as far as like Wikipedia, Wikitravel has them, so I won't be the one to do it. But one of the films here being centered on a tour provider who is providing incredibly authentic experiences, someone is going to end up editing that listing for at least Wikitravel that lists that Saigon Happy Tours to include a link to, hey, here's a documentary about that organization. The most random sometimes little areas is where we find, oh, we've got a link to our film and people are watching it through there.
Yeah, of course. And I do remember quite a few of the participants that was on my first program, they actually got their film into like their local university film festivals, which some of these universities, Robin, they're big, so lots of eyes on them. So much so that I think even when I was a university student on my global exchange, I was invited to play the film in front of the local audience there at San Diego State, and had an incredible reception. We're talking maybe 2-3 years after the actual film was made, yet it still had a really big cut through, because we had audience members there, Hispanic background, who connected very deeply to the story. So you just don't know how the stories are actually going to have touch points in the community. And it is awesome that so many of the participants do want to empower themselves post-program and really are proud to share that film amongst the community. We
have, there's other groups that do more like classroom prep of short films like ours, and I still get films that are like 10 years old sometimes. Wow. People reaching out of, could we include it in this? And the interesting part there is some of them are like, we want to have more supplementary materials, and I have to find the email, or oftentimes now it's just go find them on LinkedIn for this director. And a good proportion of the people that travel with us do remain in the film industry, but some of them are have government jobs or are teachers, or we have one Catholic priest who was in a Guatemala different location than we went to. Like all across the board, all kinds of different jobs that people eventually went into. And so I get to catch up with plenty of those people too, because some people I stay in pretty good contact with. I have had random phone calls of, hey, I'm in a camera store in New York City. I have this much money and I need to do this project. Should I get this camera and these lenses, or this camera and these lenses? Or like, hey, what was our gear list again? I'm going to go down to Belize with a few friends and we're going to do the same kind of project. So can you tell me what was the kit that we used before? And that doesn't work 10 years on, because the gear changes way too much. But for a recent traveler, that's still a worthwhile thing to call me up for. So I've helped people on their Fulbright applications and things like, I stay in touch with plenty, but plenty of them move on and do other things. So it's been a fun way to reconnect with different people, find out what they're up to when, like, hey, if you remember enough, this group would like to ask you like 5 questions about being in Morocco and working on this film.
You know, you bring up a very good point about the Actuality Abroad alumni community, because there are, I mean, I'll let you think about how many trips you may have run. You may have a ballpark number there, but certainly the amount of experienced people here that come on these trips and grow into themselves once the trip is finished, and maybe have a new lease of career purpose when they come out of the program. Yeah, obviously a ballpark number would be amazing as to how many of these programs you've run, but then beyond that as well, if there are any memorable people or stories that have stood out around kind of how they've been able to give back to the community post program, if there are any examples there.
Oh, man, the number of programs. I don't have just a guess. Yeah. There was years where we'd have 3 summer programs. Wow. In years where we've had, since COVID, it's been do one bigger one. Sure. It was just worked out better. But every year, 3 to 5.
And we're talking
ones,
over a decade, right?
Minus the pandemic of shutting everything down for a bit.
Wow.
And there's sometimes, but I didn't lead all of those programs. Sometimes I'd be off with the university group, and so I wouldn't be on the main one. And sometimes there's random extras. Last year I was in Bogota for just over a week with a group of young women that were all from Chicago area. Wow. Not film students, not even all university students. They were all through a program that finds experiences for adult former foster care youth.
Wow.
So most of them had almost no film experience at all. And we went to one neighborhood, Perseverancia, that's got a pretty bad reputation, but is trying to change that, trying to become a more touristy area. And we met a former gang leader who was leading the charge on flipping the neighborhood, and they made a really pretty good short, I think that one came out to 4 or 5 minutes, 1 week. There's, you lower your time aim there. And that was a more hands-on, I need you to stand here, do this. You stand here, move the camera, do this. It was one of the times that proved to me that filming with iPhones is actually really helpful and productive, because they had no other camera experience, but put an iPhone in their hands and they're like, I'm easy. Comfortable with this, just tell me what I'm doing. So that, and then people being less nervous around the iPhone because it's a phone, it doesn't look as big as the cameras, which I can use and love and all that, and they have many good uses, but yeah, the iPhones have come in handy for a lot of that. But so some random programs with that too. I really don't know how many different projects I've been out on. At one point I tried to count how many people that must have been, and I don't retain that right now either. Sorry, the guess of the numbers, it's beyond me. What was the other half of that?
Yeah. But as far as how long you've been doing this for, has it been over? Are we talking over a decade?
15 years.
15 years.
Again, minus that 2 or 3 COVID years of working on ideas and things, and but not traveling, not leading programs.
15 years. Wow. So lots of participants. If we're talking an average of 12 participants per program, that's a big alumni.
Lots of programs, participants, and also we don't repeat one location from year to year. Sometimes with the university group, because they're risk management departments, I hear you, I recognize you. I get that you like going to the same place, but we like working with different organizations, giving people the opportunity to film with the best, coolest, most interesting, most innovative organizations, and you can't stay in the same place every year and do that. So we changed up. This, we were in Vietnam 2 years ago, but that was in Hoi An, central Vietnam. Now we're in Saigon, southern Vietnam. Same country sometimes, but different places. But given enough years, we've gone back to some of the same places. And San Juan La Laguna at Lake Atitlan is a special place in my heart for having spent, and it was only our 3rd year of running programs, and spent a month up there. and just found it to be one of the most welcoming, friendly communities. That's where the Fishermen's Cooperative was.
Yes.
And then we went back, and it was like 10 years since we had been there. But I would still run into some of those fishermen. They remembered me. I'd sit in the
Robin.
street and have a drink with them and chat about how they're going. Went around to see some of the other people that were still there. One of the women that we made a documentary about was the local midwife. And there was now a giant mural painted of her in town because she'd basically helped deliver almost everyone in town. And we didn't know how really connected to the community she was until we're back and we're like, oh, yeah, we made a documentary about her. They're like, yeah, we all know her. We love she, me, my brother, my kids, all knew everybody. Wow. So fun connections on that. Or in Guatemala, I've been to more than anywhere else, partly because of university programs, liking the same place. I have a lot of good friends there, tattoo artist friends, but also organizational friends too. And Patojismo is in Jocotenango, just outside of Antigua. That is Juan Pablo Fuentes Romero. Sometimes I flip that the wrong way. I'm sorry if I just did again. He started an after-school program that we filmed with in like 2011. And that after-school program, at that point even, he's like, someday I'm going to have a university. And it's like, all right, we'll see. And from an after-school program, he then had his own school that I think was that one filmed with when you were
could have
there?
been.
The Luz was part of the title.
Could have been, yeah.
So he opened a grade school that also then added a bakery and a clinic to help serve the community. He then, I've been back twice now and seen him. He has a officially government, well, the grade school was a government licensed or approved or whatever school, sanctioned school probably. And then he opened a high school, which was also like, it was a top-notch, really excellent looking school, smaller, but perfect for that community. And again, fully government approved, sanctioned, all of that. And he knows the land. He's like, that land over there is owned by the National Brewery Company, but it's been just the same coffee for years now. That's the land I really want. I want to put my university there. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just waiting.
Sure, yeah.
You were gonna.
It's not if, it's when.
Turn off.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just waiting. You're gonna have your university, and I'll keep coming back, and I'll film with you. So 4-5 times at different points in that trajectory, we've gone back and filmed with him. So it's really fun to get to see some of those grow too and shift. He first was like, we need to empower these kids to be more in charge, be more leaders, be more like deciding where the country's going. And I'm still like, yeah, great idea. I support what you're doing. And I watched him and several other different groups across Guatemala start to hit a point of, we need to figure out more opportunities though for these youth, because they all just want to leave. They all want to go to the U.S. to make money. Like, they need more opportunity here, reason to stay here. What else can we do? So his high school, one, helping them become leaders, but also training, like workshops, classes. You want to be a barista? They befriended several of the cafes in the next town where all the tourists are buying coffee. Yeah, you could learn how to do that. You want to learn how to be a chef? We got classes for that. Even I'll give Ilegal Mezcal like points there. Like, they have been coming to that area of Guatemala since before they were officially a company. They partner with the school. You want to learn how to be a bartender, because bars and tourists another thing, and you could work in nice hotels, you could work in the cool little hidden bar, any of that. Yeah, we've got a class sponsored by the Mezcal company that will help you learn how to be a bartender too. They're any different kinds of jobs and work that they can find opportunity in. That has become the big shift for them too. It's been really interesting to watch it change over time.
Wow. And without that, you don't have, without the retention of those relationships and going back every couple of years or even every year, you don't keep those relationships. So that's very important, right?
Mostly. I really am not a Facebook person. It's not much of a thing for me. But I keep my account alive because I do stay connected to people. People in Nairobi I haven't seen in probably a decade, and I still get pictures sent from one of them. And one of them actually, Priest is his name. We have each other on WhatsApp. I was helping him try and get his son into law school in the United States. And he's a reggae musician, so he sends me links when he has new music and stuff because he knows I love to hear it.
Yeah, that's a great story about Guatemala, and for me personally, like I am still very closely connected with Philip Wilson, who's the CEO of Echo Filtro. The documentary that I made with them, he has continued to write references for me on jobs, and we've kept in touch. And this is an interesting one, Robin, as well. Like, for me personally, he sort of said, well, you know, in 2026 and beyond, like we're doing a lot of changes to our factories, and, you know, we're reaching more and more rural communities with their water filtration technology. And he's like, well, we wouldn't mind having another story told. So do you sometimes get that, like with your alumni community or even your changemakers, where they're like, hey, like a follow-up story would be nice?
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes it's more like you want to come back next year and do a different story, and I have to it's never a personal thing. It's like, no, we just don't repeat the same location, but we might come back. And we've gone back, and I want to say, Juan Pablo Patogismo, we've gone back and checked in with him on how that's going. Let's see, Techo, that used to be Un Techo para mi país was their full name, but they do emergency housing across Latin America. They call it emergency housing. It's really good, nice housing for people that need it. We haven't worked with the same people, but we worked with them in Nicaragua, and then we worked with them in Ecuador. So we've gotten like different stories from this whole project and process at different points in time. And we've had organizations that did, like, hey, do you want to come back? Do you want to see where things are going? I'm trying to remember, there's been it's a few of those. Oh man, I guess it hasn't been for at least like 2 years, but we've gone back, touched base, and I think that bigger the Guatemala one, San Juan La Laguna, when we returned, unfortunately, the population of the fish, they guessed from fertilizer and things hitting the water, had just gone so far down that they were almost not fishing at all anymore. Couldn't really follow up with them. Margarita, the midwife with the mural, was no longer there, but I think one of the other organizations that we'd done before, we made like the microdoc with them. We'll check in with them and talk to them, and we get calls of like, hey, do you want to come back and do another one? It's just, for the logistics, can we get it? Will it fit into the time? And still, as much as I would love to grow the company, have more projects, go to more places, but say Nicaragua used to be a favorite place to go. And especially for the people coming with us that are getting credit for participating, their school looks at Nicaragua right now and says, no, we're not gonna, we can't send you to Nicaragua. How about Vietnam or something like that? So we have to shift some of the places we go to, just like we used to avoid Mexico. That was pretty off limits, and now for some schools, parts of Mexico are off limits. But most of it has come back to be where we're safe to go. So we just have to work within the limitations too. Where can we get back to, or where can we go for new places also?
Yeah, makes total sense, and it's obviously awesome that Guatemala is still a place that you guys consistently go to, and a country that you share so much of your knowledge and expertise with. It's awesome that you do this work. I think it might often go unnoticed from the outside just how big of an impact you have, because as we've spoken about before, tangibly you put the film out there, you have amazing participants who obviously are very grateful, but then that impact sometimes you don't always see, but you sort of know in the background it's happening, because it's typically far more widespread than we can even perceive. But for you, like, it seems like one of the best jobs in the world as far as, going around, traveling, being able to run this program. But ultimately, what are your sort of hopes with the program? And for you as well, just give us a bit of an insight about what you've learnt being in the position that you've been in, because it seems like the worldliness of the experience and being able to meet all the people you've met and tell all the stories you've told, it's an incredible journey you've had.
It's amazing to travel and meet all of these different people and organizations. It's still documentary, that meaning like it still is not like a high paying, it's not great if you're looking to be a well-off, wealthy person. That's not what making documentary is about. So just in the interest of sustainability, keeping the company going, growing it, having more programs, working with more schools. I would love to go further from one textbook to the last time I was in Vietnam was working with organizations where every group had youth in it that really could have been more collaborative in how do we make these films. Kids at a school for deaf and hard of hearing children that they were already filming themselves with tablets every day to see how their sign language was going. We could have definitely worked with them on filming things. Or another group where one of the kids was very immobile, but he could run his remote and show you his curated YouTube channel and everything he'd done with that, so totally would get it. Or the third group was young women who were quite disabled, making crafts, selling those to tourists. And at that point, they had 60,000 followers on TikTok, and they're definitely over 1 million last time I checked too. So all of them have an understanding of media. I would love to try other new approaches and see how we could integrate the people we're filming with into this storytelling. But generally speaking, the directors of the organizations are much more preferable to give us the other kind of documentary. That's what we need to get out to what people who might support us. So that is still very powerful storytelling. I want to keep going with that. I would love to experiment, though, with other ways also. It's just going to take getting into more classrooms, getting out with more groups and growing this. So that's really the big aim of just do more with Actuality Abroad. But coming back to things I've learned and taken away from the experiences, everywhere I go, I'm a connector. Oh, you're trying to make bicycles into machines in Guatemala. I also know this guy in Kenya that does that. And the guy that in Guatemala that was teaching people, we went to Bolivia and filmed with the guy that came to Guatemala and was a student there and then went and opened his own place in Bolivia too. So we follow on some of those lines, and I help these. I'm like, oh, you want to grow this kind of thing? Talk to this guy in this country. Here, I'll give you his WhatsApp number. And I help connect people for that kind of thing all the time. So I take great joy in that with the changemaker side. Also watching them, you were saying we don't always see a tangible, more attention or more outcome from the films, but sometimes Priest, the one from Kenya that's the reggae musician, we filmed with Box Girls, was the organization there, teaching boxing to young girls in the slums. Shortly, within a year after we left, PBS from the United States had a photographer there doing an editorial on them. And then within 3 years, I had connected them with actually an Aussie documentary filmmaker. He did Mongolian Bling too, which is how I first came across him. And he went and did a feature-length documentary with them. So some of the organizations, we see tangible. It's never it's never us. I'm fully with that. But helping get their voice out there got them connected to more people that would come and get them more attention and just keep that ball rolling. Beyond that, though, for working with students and filmmakers and giving them more skills for film, for storytelling, still one of my favorite things that you don't fully understand until you get around the world into so many different places is everyone, especially from the US, is kind of conditioned to be scared about travel and going to all these other different places. And what about this? What about that? Do I need to bring shampoo? And there's stores in these places. There's resources in these places. The moment I love is when I watch people realize they do that here. I do that at home. They do that here too. They have this here too. When people realize it's not that different, it's a different language. There's very unique cultural aspects about every place, but we're really not that far removed from each other. And I hope that helps them click in, we should all get along and support each other and work with each other and do better things by each other, because we are not that different of a people from any one point to another in the world.
I love that. And I actually do believe that, and I've done this program 3 times now, and you do see the world differently. You do, because I think what it allows you to do is be more curious as a storyteller and go out to these communities and maybe pay more attention to things that maybe you may have turned a blind eye to for one reason or another, but it does really allow you to. I think the word empathy as well, Robin, is another one that comes up when you get more and more perspectives of the way different people do it, and how welcoming they are bringing you into their community, and how much trust they put in you, right, as a storyteller to represent them in the right ways. It's a huge honour. So to actually be able to have that empathy for them and sort of really do your best to understand their perspective, I think is probably one of the great things that this program teaches. For those people out there listening that want to get involved in a program like this, program, how would they go about doing that?
Actualityabroad.org is our main website. You'll find us on YouTube, find us on Vimeo, find us on Instagram. YouTube, Vimeo is 150 or is more than that for how many films are on there now.
Wow.
But yeah, you get us through those. Through our main website is how we have everyone sign up for the outreaches. There's also the portal on there for faculty if they want to reach out to us, talk about building programs, and then we'll have just specific school groups. And then Purpose-Driven Documentaries is, I'm new at publishing things. I don't have the statistics and numbers. It's only been a month and a half, so I don't know which university bookstores will have it or how that works exactly. But it's on Amazon, it's on the Routledge website, and I know from a good number of faculty that it is coming to some different schools for classes around North America so far. We need to start reaching out, I guess, to other continents and talk to other people and see where else that might go.
It'll happen. Well, thank you for providing that. Just finally, for people that just, I guess, want to best understand what it takes to go to this level with their storytelling. What is your, I guess, key takeaway, if you had to bundle it all into a bit of advice around how you can best be, a storyteller in your own community or potentially in the world community?
The stories are all there. There's plenty of people I've met, but I don't have this camera, I don't have that lens. Equipment should not be, in this day and age, the hang up. A phone is a good enough device. There's some attachments that make it a way better device, but it's all possible. And so it is really about the preparation, the planning, and getting to know people so they are comfortable with you when you want to go in and tell their story. And then just remembering that this is someone else's story. So how would you want your story treated if someone was coming to film you? Treat people with that level of respect and understanding, and you do the best you can by their story.
I love it. It's fantastic advice, and we're very excited, obviously, to wrap this program up and to see the incredible stories that come out of this Ho Chi Minh City documentary outreach program here in Vietnam. Obviously, Robin, you have been such a big mentor and inspiration to me on my storytelling journey. I think I went on this incredible path after I did the documentary outreach program, wanting to tell more and more stories, get out there in the community, mingle amongst the locals and be a social impact storyteller. You're a big reason behind why I do what I do today. So thank you, and thank you for continuing to include me on these incredible experiences with Actuality, and to be someone who continues to live those values of what that program taught me 10 years ago. So thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for continuing to spread positivity.
Thank you, mate, and thank you for being on the potty.
We didn't get the right.
Oh, are we going to do the...
I don't know.
Oh.
How do you...
Oh,
I don't...
There we go. There it is. Thank you very much, Robin. Cheers, mate.